Okay, guys, I think I'm live, and I'm going to talk about the wounds of silence. So what happens when we basically grow up in a family where things have been very difficult and there's been trauma, but I don't think you can see me right now because I haven't got my camera on. So let me deal with that. There you go. Okay, here I am. So what we have is that I'm going to talk a little bit on trauma and what happens when we basically go through life and we're told that the early trauma that we've experienced, that we're not allowed to talk about it. And the other thing I need to do is to see that I am on YouTube so I can see if any messages come through, if anybody joins the chat. Okay, so I've got that. So basically what we have is that when we're told as children that through abuse that we're not allowed to speak about it, we probably do have a generation where that's gone on, and we're now in a generation of children where people are speaking up, and because people are getting more vocal, long term there's probably going to be less abuse, or more abuse is going to come to light when it does happen as a result of people speaking up. So let's see, we have what happens through abuse. The first thing is that there's repression. And when we are repressed, we stop being our true selves, like we wear a mask in the world because we feel that there's something wrong with us and we don't know how to deal with reality, particularly when a childhood's been stumped by acts by adults that really shouldn't have been happening. And I know from being on Facebook and being in groups that there are a lot of people that do have experienced childhoods that have been very traumatic, and it separates people, it segregates people, because people who've not been through abuse will tell people that have been through abuse basically not to, just to let their trauma go. Because of complex PTSD, it's almost like an impossible case scenario. If I can give you an example, people who've been through complex PTSD, as in PTSD, will have nightmares, they'll have flashbacks, and they'll be triggered by things that could be very uncomfortable for them. So there's a lot of behavior that goes on that relates right back to being a child. And then we have that when we have denial in families as well, it means that cycles repeat themselves. So, you might get where one child is abused in a family, but then that will continue with other children in the family, or it might go outside the family. But if somebody doesn't speak up against the person who is, being the abuser, and nobody says anything, then basically the person who is abusing, be it sexually, physically, or verbally, it means that they will do this to other people. And then on top of that, we then get to shame. So shame is where, this will affect people in life, and they can often then choose partners who will reenact this process with them, because the choices that are then being made by people that have been through trauma as children then can end up with narcissistic people. They'll choose people that basically are unkind and cruel. Then we have rejection, and we also have rejection of self, because what happens is that if we've not been taken care of properly, then we often will not know how to take care of ourselves properly. And also on top of that, we'll also have the prefrontal cortex closes down in complex PTSD with triggers, and the prefrontal cortex is part of the brain which allows us to make healthy choices and to make decisions. And when people go into triggers or flashbacks, then what happens is that they're unable to basically make healthy decisions or normal decisions, because in triggers or flashbacks, it's very difficult. And then we can have lots of guilt, because if through abuse, one can feel quite guilty that they think that because they didn't say something that they've made it happen, which is a double-edged sword. And then we can also have separation. So because of that, we'll have separation from family members, and very much people do end up very much on their own, because they'll cut off their family And so not only do they go through abuse, they end up without any family, no nurturing and no love. So it's a big issue out there that people think there's something wrong with speaking about abuse, but without verbal ventilation and exploring the issues around it, it means that the cycles keep happening. And that doesn't mean as adults, it means children coming through are also going to have this happen with them, because they basically, nobody's calling out the abusers and the abusers get away with it. So I think that speaking up is probably, it's a hard thing for many. I know myself that I'm finding it difficult, that, there are some things that we want to say to people or we want to explore with our families, maybe where we've come from, to understand how something happened or why something happened. And family members generally will not want to discuss. They won't want to speak about it. They'll want to keep in their own shell and protect themselves. And probably the likelihood is that some family members may be having their own triggers and flashbacks. So this means that nothing gets healed and cycles keep continuing and repeating. I don't know if anybody's watching there, but if anybody's got had childhood trauma or complex PTSD or knows they have it, it's not actually a disorder. It is something that happens. It's complex PTSD. It happens as a result of one being in trauma, and then over many years, maybe, for an example, let's say you're in an abusive family and for 10, 15 years you're being abused. You'll have so many memories as an adult that you'll go back to, or maybe don't quite remember, that have affected you. And it's not until later in life that these issues come up. So what I want to do with this channel is basically get to a point where I can invite people on who want to speak about their issues, and, that will help other people grow and develop and get away from problems that they've been having, because I think we can heal together. And this is really a short video, but I wanted to let people know that this is what I'm up to, and I'm available if somebody wants to join in. I've got the facility for people to come in onto the screen and discuss and thrash out some of these beliefs and belief systems and patriarchal beliefs that keep us in pain and stop us from healing. So I'm going to leave it there for today. That's it. But I will be back on Sunday, and hopefully I'll have somebody on with me, which will make it easier for me and maybe more interesting, get to subjects where people maybe can also ask questions and stuff like that. Okay, thanks for watching. Thank you.